Hello, everybody. It's just me popping on here because I've got so much artwork to do, and I want to procrastinate instead, or I want to at least hang out and drink a cup of coffee and maybe wait for Andy Epler to want to take his Adderall for the day, and then he'll work like a fucking dog forever. An adorable dog, one of those like very clever poodles, maybe. Hello, viewer. Look, I can see who's looking. I fucking see you. I don't know if there are any artists out here today. I'm quite sure they're busy. Golly, probably fulfilling their destiny is good for them. I just got out of the shower and I'm loading bowls until my job seems like a good idea for a grown man to do. I haven't been posting very much on Facebook lately. It feels like the past couple days, just because I was busy, had my partner Z around, and that usually keeps me from being frustrated enough to bitch about the Bible or whatever. But I figured I'd just pop on here for a little bit and smoke bowl, see who's around. Feel free to say hello if you pop by. Today, the art project that I'm avoiding is a book I've been writing. It's a book I've been writing. I got the idea in 2009 and kind of wrote like the first chapter of it. I thought it was a short story at first. So I wrote that and I kind of was done with it and kind of put it out there a little bit, but mostly didn't. I think I published it in like a local magazine or something. But I wasn't done with that story somehow. And so now, Jesus, it's so many years later now. Since 2009? God. It's a long time. And, God damn, is that almost 20 years? Oh, no. So I'm doing about a chapter a year, I guess. Christ. That's embarrassing to discover in front of people. Oh, good. Oh, just one person. So I've been picking the project back up because I finally found like a little notch that I could kind of wedge myself into to get some leverage on the story. And not so much the story even, just the functionality of how the book will work. So I'm probably not ready to talk about that particular part of it, just because it probably is a pipe dream. Not like the sexy kind. Hey, Sam, you have any good pipe dreams lately? So I've been working on this book, and it's a fantasy book. Nobody's asking me to make that. Of course, it's rare that people ask Andy to make any art. He just sort of vomits it out into the world. Good to see you, Sam. You prize of the local community. You goddamn magic guitar player and artist. Sam, do you have like a link to any of your art stuff? Or are you still selling it through Left Hand Artist Group? Sam has some of the most amazing artwork. I have a little Sam piece. Matter of fact, it's back at my river place. Maybe a bong dream. Yeah. Well, we all have those. Remember, I used to do the hippie report on here, and you can tell the difference between the orientation, of course, with the camera. But I used to have a big bong named Crazy Horse. And Crazy Horse lived a long, troubled life. But eventually somehow met its end. I can't remember. It was me. I'm pretty sure I broke it. I can't remember why or when or whatever. But poor Crazy Horse died. And what? Such is the life of a bum. So anyways, this book that I've been avoiding for almost 20 years. I guess today the video is a lesson in procrastination. There's this book called The War of Art. And it is by this dude named Steven Pressfield. And Pressfield writes about what it's like to be in art. Sam doesn't really do art anymore, but there's a bunch in my photos. Okay. Well, you know, man, just because you haven't taken a shit in a while doesn't mean you don't shit no more. There's still art inside us all, you know. I hope there's more art to be made. You're still playing music and stuff, right, Sam? I'll bet you are. I'll bet you are. What a sad loss that would be to the world. But these are both bummer pieces of news if they're true. So the book by Steven Pressfield, it's called The War of Art. And that's a little bit masculine way to approach the topic, in my opinion. Somehow men can't just like do shit. They're like, oh, I'm a fucking warrior. Let's get out there and start a battle. You're a soccer player, but relax. Like, you're playing a game children play. You don't have to be a fucking murderous warrior all the time, do you? No, I'm a powerful caveman, and I'm going to kick that ball in between the things, and everybody's going to be so happy, and that'll be me winning a battle. I just, like, you know, man. So, Steven Pressfield's maybe one of those guys. And his book is very infused with capitalism in a way that I think is kind of medium helpful. Pressfield will tell you that your job is professional artist. And this is the good part of the advice. You're a professional artist. That means that there are expectations of you that aren't put on someone like a hobbyist. I love that idea. And if you're going to choose to be a professional artist, you have to kind of raise your expectations or lower your standards of living. And that's what I've done. And that's, you know, I don't know if I really recommend it. But so Pressfield, his book is kind of about like, here's how to stay in business. Here's how to keep your job. Hold on, Sam says. He's in Loveland East End Ale House tonight with nobody's business. Oh, shit. I live in Loveland. I love Loveland. East End Ale House. Shit. Well, that's on the other end of town, I think, from where I would be. And I'm not down there right now. I'm stuck in Denver because my car broke down. Because I've lowered my standard of living to the point that your car could just not be a car anymore. Is it a car, or is it like a $3,000-$4,000 universal lesson generator? I think it's more of a lesson generator than a car. It's like a very expensive paperweight. So Pressfield's book. We're talking about procrastination. Be glad we could be talking about Jesus. Talk about a procrastinator. That motherfucker left 2,000 years ago. I swear to God, if he's up there watching another episode of The West Wing instead of coming down here, we're all going to be pissed, I think. Lucky for him, he's nowhere. So we don't have to blame him. Steven Pressfield, The War of Art. He will tell you that, like, you have to sort of ritualize your experience in making art because a professional has to. Because a professional doesn't have an option of, like, sitting down and not standing up with a finished product. A professional has to, like, finish their work. Hobbyists can fuck around all day. Professionals have to actually finish projects. So I guess what I'm saying is I have, with regard to my own writing project that I was talking about, I have slipped into more of a hobbyist kind of approach because I feel like I could just walk away from it instead of birth it completely. Does this guy need to be more masculine? He keeps talking about birthing things and stuff. Pressfield's book is a very masculine approach, and it's very like obsessed with the job and defining the artist through the literal hiring process and the completion of paid work. And that's totally the definition of professional artist, I suppose. But there's another book that can balance these things out, and it's called On Writing. And that's by some upstart named Stephen King. I'm not sure he's written very many things. If you're going to take advice from a motherfucker on writing books, Stephen King is basically the only stop you really need, in my opinion. There are other authors we can talk about other times, but today I guess I want to talk about Stephen King versus Stephen Pressfield. And Stephen King, his thing is more like discovering the joy of the process and letting that sort of carry you through the process. I think it's more of like he definitely will sit down and write, whatever it is, 6 pages a day, I think is what Stephen's doing. And does it work for him? Fuck yeah, it works for him. He's written more novels than anybody. He probably is the greatest novelist of all time. Go fuck yourself. If you disagree with that, go fuck yourself. What about Jesus? He wrote lots of books. Actually, wrote 0 books. So, and whatever. And Paul's books in the Bible, not novels, and shitty. So, Stephen King, he's probably, how many fucking books has Stephen King written? He's getting through them, dude. And it's because he sits down first thing in the morning and he writes a certain number of it's either words or pages. I think it might be pages. And so, I don't know, if you just follow that process, you can actually muscle through so much work. But it's the tough thing is like sitting down and sort of like, what's it like? Come on, Andy Epler, you're a writer. Jesus, what's it like? It's like starting a lawnmower. A lot of the effort is right at the front where you're like, maybe, Jesus, do lawnmowers even do that anymore? Am I showing my age? I don't actually deal with a lot of lawnmowers in my day-to-day life, and last time I did, they were kind of a motherfucker. So it was like, nope. So like, that's my experience, and I talk to a lot of artists, and I feel like people are pretty genuine with me, so they tend to sort of open up, and that seems to be a pretty common experience where it's like, I know I want to write something today, but my dick's not hard about it. Does he gotta make it like that? Yeah. I'm got a big old floppy dick about my work, and you can't fuck shit with that. So like, it's sort of that first process of getting yourself into the mood and into the flow state so that you can access your best work. But more than that, I think it really points to like a dopamine question, because if you don't have enough dopamine in your system, especially as a neurodivergent person who like is basically running a system on dopamine and always sort of running out, and fighting depression or whatever for that same reason, a lot of artists are dealing with that. So it really comes down to how do you motivate yourself? How do you get the fucking vrabaka going? How do you go? How do you mow the lawn, motherfucker? Pressfield will tell you that you do it through pressure. You do it through expectation, and you maybe even do it through a little bit of self-punishment. Sounds like your lawnmower needs a carburetor clean out. Tyler, you got a good point there. And me not being a wonderfully technical person all the time, I have a car out there right now that it's a puzzle I'm trying to not try fuck with. But yeah, if you want to come around and Tyler, if you want to come around and clean out my carburetor. What the fuck? So you hitting on Tyler? Not really. Kind of, I guess. Fun way. Tee-hee-hee. Tee-hee. So, Pressfield will tell you that because you're a professional artist, there are expectations on your behavior. And he's saying that because he's assuming that a professional artist is being hired by someone other than their fucking self, usually. So there's a boss. Stephen King's more in this place where he's the boss. And if he beats up his employee too much, he's beat up everybody that works at the business, you know? It's taken me forever to say anything. That's one of my gifts as a writer, is it takes me 1,000 words to say almost anything. Is it a gift? It's like a terrorist attack. So Pressfield controls himself even through like negative self-talk, and kind of like I do that. You know, I fall into that pretty easy, where it's like, oh, you motherfucker, you just want to sit around and do drugs and you know, be flirty and eat pizza or whatever. You piece of shit. I hope you don't continue in your work. You know, you don't deserve it. It's kind of the thinking that comes out of that. Stephen King, I think, is more working with a dopamine-centric model, where it's like he expects it of himself, but it's because he expects to do what he appreciates, what he likes. And that's actually a way more, for me, sustainable way to keep moving. I mean, look, I have 2 empty canvases right here. I'm supposed to be drawing a dog for my friend Heather. I forgot an essential part of my process when I left town. So now I'm kind of like fucked on that too. I probably could be doing something for it, but I'm not, you know. So I'm telling you a process that I struggle with, okay? Procrastination. And it's my only job, by the way. If I don't do my job, I'll starve to death. And God damn it, I'll let him starve to death if he doesn't do what we want. But that's kind of my Pressfield training coming out, right? You can hear it happening. If my employee doesn't behave properly, he can't be fired, but he can suffer consequences, you know? Put him in a place where he has to do his work because, like, there is no money in the bank or there is no backup plan. So if you don't do your work, you'll actually fucking starve to death, and the boss will let you. So that's actually one of the problematic little corners of my world. I'm trying to be more like Stephen King, where it's just like, wow, my little guy, he's gonna paint me a little painting today, or my little fella's gonna fucking... Well, that's why I created Ando, so I could have a dude that I don't talk shit about. Little Ando, he's gonna paint us that dog, wow. And you know, he's gonna have a lot of fun doing it. He loves this dog. I'm not sure he's met the dog. I don't think I have met this dog. It's like one of these cute little smush-faced things. And I got this great picture of this dog to work with. So I'm excited about it, I guess. And I love Heather. And I love, for some reason, painting animals has become one of my specialties. But I missed one of the pieces that I need. And so I don't have my full kit with me for doing goddamn watercolor paintings. If you'd like watercolor painting, please slide into my inbox and I'll put it on the list of things that I'm looking at going, oh, I want to do that. I wish I had brought ... So there you go. There's a little thoughts on procrastination, a few little things. And then if I wrote a book about this topic as well, about writing and being in the arts and making it a repeatable process for yourself. I've written 2 books about this. That's why when I'm doing it, I fucking know. Ugh. But I know I will do this book project. God damn it, it'll only be like my fifth book, maybe fourth book, fifth book. If you're counting an art book, it'll be the fifth book. If it has pages, it's a book, fucker. So that will count that. Yeah. If you'd like to purchase a book, let me know. I'm also just giving them away. Because I'm not really much of a capitalist. That's why the Pressfield thing doesn't hit for me like it hits for other people. I think I've even heard Joe Rogan talk about the war of art. And of course, he gets exactly the wrong message from it, in my opinion. He's like, oh, it's like going to the gym. You gotta fucking be a warrior. You gotta wake up every day and be a warrior and fight the battle of art. Oh, you gotta win the war of art. Better have big old muscles and go to the gym. It's just like doing the hardest work you've ever done. Isn't it your job to write jokes, bro? Maybe take it a little bit less seriously. I sing songs. You don't see me burning myself in the public square or whatever. Jesus Christ. I think it's dangerous to treat your art like a fucking battle. Who the fuck are you fighting, right? You're fighting yourself. So maybe, like, be a little gentle in your war, right? Sort of like when people tell me, I'm really fighting for my relationship. Yeah? I understand working with your partner on your relationship. But if you're fighting for your relationship, who the fuck are you fighting? The other person in the relationship? Who's on which side? Really fighting for my relationship. I guess maybe if you worked together on it, might get better results. Words mean shit. Some other time we'll talk about why that's an important concept, maybe. Or why I've discovered that's an important concept. I have a lot of time to just read stuff and look up philosophical bullshit. And one thing I know for sure is words mean shit. And your brain actually hears the words you say. That's why, when I have this negative self-talk or whatever, I do have to kind of, correct him a little bit. Playfully, whatever. Oh, Andy Epler, if you don't write, 1,000 words this morning, I won't give you lunch. That's something that's happened between us before, me and me. And, I just had to kind of stop him and be like, bitch, we eat lunch. We eat lunch. You know what I mean? You got to treat him at least as good as you'd treat a dog, for fuck's sake. Anyway, there's some little playful notes for artists out here. We'll have other notes maybe some other day. Stephen Pressfield's The War of Art. Stephen King's On Writing. And then my book. Golly, here's one. Voila, it's called A Songwriter's Grimoire. Practical Notes for a Mystical Practice. I basically just gave you a lot of the highlights during this episode. It's a short book, actually. It's 3 sections. And it's also got a lot of lyrics in the end of it because, if your whole book is about how you write lyrics, you should probably show your work or whatever. So here's, all the lyrics I've ever published, or had ever published at the time. There's been a few other things since then. And then here's the actual book. It's written... Goddamn, it's written for people who are dyslexic and in the arts and ADHD. I don't expect you motherfuckers to be reading a bunch of book. For fuck's sake, I'm not trying to get motherfuckers to be reading that much book. But look, this is how much book there actually is. The rest of this is just my, proving that I can rhyme or something, So those are the books that I can recommend for artists that are dealing with procrastination. Like your man here, dealing with procrastination. He loves doing his work, and oh God, I can't make him do it sometimes. It's frustrating. It's like, oh, I can fit an annoying Jesus thing into this. It's like when Jesus in the book, he's like, you guys seem confused. So here's like one piece of homework that I can give you. Okay? Go out in the world and be cool to motherfuckers. You know? He says, go out into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. That's not as fun as be cool to all the motherfuckers. And I think it basically means the same thing. So he tells his followers, like, do this. Everything I've been saying boils down to, like, be cool. Love people and things are going to be fine. That's sort of his thing. And yet, if you go listen to Christian blah, 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 see their outcomes when they get into power, they have somehow missed the only target, right? That's kind of how this works. If your job as an artist is to express what's inside you, there really isn't a wrong answer. And once you start getting other targets like what's marketable, what do people respond to, what can I make money doing, that's actually more targets than your actual job title, or that's more than the name of your path. So like today, to trick my brain into doing the work I'm supposed to be doing, that I set aside a day for, and that's an expensive thing for Andy Epler to do, to try and set aside a day for a thing that does not make money. That's tough. I know I can sit down and activate the flow state. Oh, because of my other book, New Reason, New Way, How My Skepticism Changed My Art. In that book, I discuss how to like activate your flow state. But you can't do that if you've procrastinated away your dopamine. For me, I know that like I'm in trouble with my dopamine if I wake up and I start scrolling too much, or if I wake up and I am itchy about some kind of philosophical thing, some Bible verse or whatever comes to mind where it's like, Jesus says anything other than put children in cages or whatever. And I'm like, angy, autistic man, justice, focused ass, So I will get all offended about some shit, and then I'll post on the internet, and I'll use up all my dopamine and motivation on arguing, and like, I don't know, being in this weird debate, or like just frustrating myself by posting some itchy thing instead of just letting it pass through me. If I use up all my motivation in that kind of effort, it'll be hard for me to gather it and focus it toward something like creation. That's what I've noticed. So if you're one of the people out there trying to make art and you're like, I do love doing it, and it's right in front of me, how come I'm not doing it? First of all, you may have ADHD, and you may be a little bit of autism there. And maybe you're not using the right drugs. That's a real component of this too, because if it's a chemical problem, boy, we have chemicals, Coffee and marijuana is my little hippie speedball of choice. And that seems to kind of unlock the gate for me. Anyways, there are the thoughts on pro-level procrastination. I hope that you've enjoyed this at some future time when it happens across your path. I have no idea how long this video is. It feels like 13 minutes. I hope you have a great day. I hope you get something done today that feels good to have gotten done. I'll catch you another time. Thank you.